This is a brief introduction to co-teaching as it's being used in classrooms here at George Fox University and in other universities in the area. Co-teaching is defined as two teachers, a cooperating teacher and a teacher candidate, working together in a classroom with groups of students, sharing the planning, organization, delivery, and assessment of instruction, as well as the physical space. Both teachers are actively involved and engaged in all aspects of the instruction. What co-teaching is not, it's not simply dividing the tasks and responsibilities among two people. It is not one person teaching one subject followed by another who teaches a different subject. It is not one person teaching while the other prepares materials or grades papers in the teacher's lounge. It is not one person teaching and the other person watching without a purpose. When one person's ideas prevail regarding what will be taught and how it will be taught, that is an example of what is not co-teaching. And co-teaching is not someone who's simply assigned to act as a tutor in the classroom. The history of co-teaching in the United States can be traced back to the 1960s, when it was popularized as an example of progressive education. In the 70s, co-teaching was advanced by legislated school reforms and the needs to modify instruction for a more diverse school population. By the 1990s, studies of the effectiveness of school-based collaborative activities with co-teaching as one model appeared in the research and practice literature. Benefits included improved academic and social skills of low-achieving students, improved attitudes and self-concepts reported by students with disabilities, and more positive peer relationships. The most frequently mentioned drawback was the lack of staff development about co-teaching. Federal legislative changes, such as those required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, IDEA, of 2004, and the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001, have focused attention on students with increasing diverse learning characteristics to achieve high academic performance in the general education classroom. Changing legal requirements and student demographics combine to point the need for increased collaborative planning and teaching among school personnel who are attempting to comply with the legal mandates of IDEA. As for the No Child Left Behind, the requirements for high standards and student performances are intended to foster conditions that lead to better instruction and learning. This is also continuing on with Race to the Top. A promising No Child Left Behind requirement is for all teachers to meet the standards that would certify them as highly qualified. The model of co-teaching incorporating strategies defined by Cook and Friend, 1995, was developed in response to parental complaints that their children were being taught too often and too long by inexperienced teacher candidates and not long enough by experienced teachers. Teachers complained that they had to give up their classrooms to teacher candidates too much and too often. After incorporating co-teaching in classrooms in Kansas State, the report was that parents began to request their children be placed in classes that use the co-teaching model rather than the traditional model, and more mentored teachers began to request teacher candidates every semester. Well, what are some of the benefits? Schwab Learning studied the impact of collaborative partnerships in co-teaching. At 16 California schools, staff members and parents made a commitment that number 1, every child would learn and be successful, and number 2, every teacher would be responsible for every learner. Teachers, administrators, and support staff creatively arranged for every student to receive blended services from a Title I teacher, reading specialist, special educators, and paraprofessionals. The results included decreased referrals to intensive special ed services, increased overall student achievement, fewer disruptive problems, less paperwork, increased numbers of students qualified for gifted and talented education, and decreased referrals for behavior problems. Teachers reported being happier and less isolated. This is from a report from Villa, Nevine, and Liston in 2005. Co-teaching is effective for students with a variety of instructional needs, including English language learners, Mahoney, 1997, and those with hearing impairment, from Compton, Stratton, Myers, Scott, and Tomlinson in 1998, and those with learning disabilities, Rice and Zygmunt, 2000, as well as students in language remediation class, Miller, Velasquez, Malloy, 1998. Research done by St. Cloud University, where they expanded the model used by Kansas State University, was implemented in 2001-2002 with the training of over 200 mentor teachers to use co-teaching with their teacher candidates during their student teaching experience. The researchers were Bacharach, Heck, and Dahlberg, and the research came out in 2006. In many traditional student teaching models, the cooperating teacher and teacher candidate have little opportunity to build a relationship before beginning their work together. Teacher candidates usually observe, often in the back of the room, for a period of time, eventually taking over a variety of tasks or portions of lessons. They often create lessons in isolation and expect feedback right before and after they are taught. At some point in the student teaching experience, the mentor teachers leave the classroom and the teacher candidate is left to take full charge. In contrast to the traditional model, mentor teachers and teacher candidates are brought together to get to know each other and to begin a professional teaching relationship. They receive instruction in co-teaching, collaboration, and communication. This is supported by Friend, 1995, who says, in quote, "Expecting pre-service teachers to learn about collaboration simply by being together in schools is not enough. Proximity is a necessary but insufficient condition for collaboration." With co-teaching, the teacher candidate typically becomes involved in the classroom immediately. Lessons are planned and taught by both teachers, resulting in the teaching candidate being seen by students as a real teacher from the beginning of the experience. The co-planning process is designed for the teacher candidate to hear and discuss the thoughts and strategies that are used in lesson planning by their mentor teacher. As the experience continues, a shift in roles happens slowly, with the teacher candidate taking more responsibility for the planning and teaching lessons. There's still time to solo, and in the classroom by themselves to be in charge. The most effective use of co-teaching comes when the teacher candidate and mentor teacher determine which lessons lend themselves to this style of teaching, and they plan accordingly. The co-teaching strategies do not need to be used on every lesson. Here's some of the data that was reported back. You can see that there's gains in the area of math on the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment. There were statistical findings in all 4 years. Again, you can see that there are statistically significant findings in reading. The cumulative data from 2004 to 2008 with an N of 1,686 students show that the positive aspects, almost 80% liked the fact they got more help with questions. There were drawbacks, as there are in any survey. Sometimes it gets confusing with 2 explanations. Sometimes teachers interrupt each other, but we can see that this is not a majority of the students. There was an end of experience survey given to 157, and the teachers candidates indicated that co-teaching led to improved classroom management skills, increased collaboration, more teaching time, increased confidence, deeper understanding of the curriculum, and more opportunities to ask questions and reflect. There is also additional benefits as being seen as a real teacher, equal partnerships, sharing of resources, and mutual support in learning. The benefits to education to the cooperating teachers include ability to reach more students, particularly those with high needs, better relationships with their teacher candidates, 90% experienced professional growth. There's enhanced energy for teaching, hosting a candidate without giving up my classroom. Teacher candidates had a better experience than they would have through a traditional model. These are the co-teaching strategies that will be discussed in further screencasts. One teach, one observe, where one teacher has primary instructional responsibility while the other gathers specific data. One teach, one assist, an extension of one teach, one observe. Station teaching, the co-teaching pair divide the instructional content into parts. Parallel teaching, where each teacher instructs half the students. Then they're addressing the same instructional material using the same teaching strategies. Supplemental teaching allows one teacher to work with students at their expected grade level, while the other one works with those who need information or materials retaught, extended, or remediated. Alternative or differentiated teaching strategies provide two different approaches to teaching the same information. Team teaching. Well-planned, team-taught lessons exhibit an invisible flow of instruction with no prescribed division of authority. There's still a place for soloing, where teacher candidates teach and plans the entire lessons for a prescribed period of time. So for us, how do we get started with this? Well, you participate in the triad, where you have the cooperating teacher, the teacher candidate, and the cooperating supervisor from the university. The cooperating teacher helps the teacher candidate feel comfortable, shares material, mentors, is flexible, and communicates expectations and models effective practice. The supervisor provides program information to the teacher and the teacher candidates. They observe and provide feedback on a regular basis. They act as a confidant for both the teacher and teacher candidate, and they're an advocate for the teacher candidate. The teacher candidates come ready to learn. They're enthusiastic and show initiative, asking questions, helping with all classroom responsibilities, including record keeping and grading. Teacher candidates learn to accept criticism and put those suggestions for improvement into practice.